So you kind of touched on this next subject a little bit in terms of programming, because I think what you said about like picking music that you're really, that shows your best is really important. But I'm curious of your method to madness when it comes to just recital programming in general. Because last year when you and Albert, who Albert was the first guest, so shout out to Albert if he's listening. But
Yes.
you guys came to Oklahoma and gave such a wonderful recital. But one of the things I noticed in that recital was just how diverse and um, how you covered so many bases with your programming or with that specific program. And so I'm curious as to what your strategy is for programming a recital, and if also the pianist that you're working with for that recital plays a role in the pieces you pick for that particular program.
I think programming is really hard. It gets really complicated if you care about your audience. I think it's really boring to go to a recital. I think there's a time and place for this type of recital. Wigmore Hall, which is kind of a place that you go to be a music nerd. If somebody's playing all three Brahms sonatas, that's the place to do it.
Sure. Yeah.
You know, I don't think it's that exciting to hear three sonatas, same time period, same number of movements, same basic length.
Yeah.
It gets really boring.
Yeah.
So I try to have variety in how long the audience is waiting in between applause moments. I try to have variety in terms of the number of movements. So basically the number of chapters in the book of but right. Seriously, I think about it that way. Yeah. So because three movements, no matter the length, feels very different than four movements.
Yeah.
Feels very different than a one movement piece. And then of course you want to play your favorites, but you also don't just want to always do meat and potatoes. So it gets really complicated, but there is such an incredible wealth of violin repertoire.
Yeah.
We have so many great pieces. Pieces that are very hard to program are like Brahms' First Sonata, because it's 30 minutes long and all three movements end quiet.
Oh,
and I know that sounds ridiculous, but I try to just think about, I often think about if my family were coming to this concert, would they get bored stiff? And I think it's something that we, in the music world, like, I think there are people that are amazing at programming, like really amazing at programming, and I've learned a lot from them. But you have to think about on movement 3 for the second time, whether that movement 3 is going to be different enough or exciting enough that somebody's still going to be listening to you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if we heard first movement, slow movement, scherzo, and then a finale twice.
Yeah.
I bet everybody, if it's not the best playing of all time, and even if it is the best playing of all time, it's still kind of, it's not the most exciting. So that's kind of my approach. And you asked if the pianist plays a part. Yeah, it's really hard. Albert, as you know, is the nicest person on planet Earth. Like, he's so nice to a fault.
Yeah.
And so he is such a yes man to me. He will just say, oh yeah, sure. Oh yeah, sure. But finally, after many years of playing together, he started saying, I say, what do you think about this one? I think I'd rather play that one. And I love hearing that from him.
Yeah.
And it's nice to start out with, this is our piece that we desperately want to play in the program. And then we're going to build out the program around this big kind of circle in the middle. This is the piece we want to play. So Schumann's Second Violin Sonata is like a total desert island piece, and it's just amazing. It's 33 minutes long. So that's a hard length. It's really long, and it's hard to put another thing on the half with it. And it's also incredibly dark and really requires a lot of the audience. So anyway, those are all things to think about, but it's a fun problem to have.
Yeah, that's actually really interesting, because I mean, I've heard of people talking about, try to be diverse in terms of like the period of the composers, like when you program recitals, but I've I don't know if I've ever heard anyone talking about like being diverse in the structure of each piece, which I think is actually like what you were saying is a very underrated component in programming because at least for you guys, you violinists, you guys have such a wealth of different, you know, forms and pieces. So I think that's really awesome.